a Delta 6 accelerator suit.
What's it accelerate?
You.
G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra is directed by Stephen Sommers, from a screenplay by Stuart Beadle, David Elliott, Paul Lovett, from a story by Michael B. Gordon, Stuart Beadle, and Stephen Sommers. The movie stars Channing Tatum, Marlon Wayans, Ewadilla Aquafor, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ray Park, Sienna Miller, Rachel Nichols, Byung Lee, Dennis Quaid, Christopher Eccleston, and Jonathan Pryce of the President of the United States. The movie is based on the Hasbro action figures and the cartoon series from the 80s, G.I. Joe, Real American Heroes. I must be real with you. I was not a really big fan. Well, first off, I wasn't even alive in the 80s. So I wasn't really a big fan of G.I. Joe as a whole. So to me, it really didn't really get there for me. Until but I did grow up on not Saturday mornings, but mornings I'd get up to go to school. There would always be the G.I. Joe would be Transformers, the animated series, and G.I. Joe would be on Cartoon Network as you're getting up early in the morning. And first G.I. Joe started, then it became Transformers, then it turned into Jackie Chan Adventures, which I still love. And so I would sit there and watch that early in the morning after I'd get up, take a shower, and I'd get up, get dressed for school, and watch that. And before the bus came, and it was really fun, and I enjoyed that. And the movie itself, I was so looking forward to, because I'm like, hey, I grew up on that, kind of in a way. And I was like, all right. And so I've seen the movie back in 2009, and I somewhat liked it when it came out. But then as it grew on me, and before the second film came out, I really said, oh, this movie's not that good. But, and I didn't like that. That was my mindset. And then the second one came, and I really loved the second one. And the second one was actually really good. And I still, to this day, love the second one. Because I love The Rock. The Rock is my favorite actor. I love The Rock. And so, it's really hard for The Rock to disappoint me in the movies. By the way, Jungle Cruise comes out next week, so go see that. But I will say, the plot essentially it's a reimagining of G.I. Joe in a sense of where it's about this organization known as Mars is delivering these warheads. And this military unit, which is ambushed by an organization known as Cobra, and they're saved and so the soldiers are saved by an organization known as the G.I. Joes, and these soldiers want to join that organization and become Joes so that way they can help to stop this organization known as Cobra. That's the plot of the movie. And so, what it is I really like about the movie, I will say, originally I did not like the movie at first. I really didn't, because I just, there's so much cheesiness and stuff, it's just, over the top. But then, as I was rewatching it last night, I just started thinking about stuff oh my god, I didn't realize this, and this. I will say, a lot of films doesn't explain how certain things happen. For instance, there's a scene where, where the Rex, who becomes the Cobra Commander, spoiler if you've never seen the movie, is saying, he says, kill them, kill all the Joes, detonate the ice pack. And then Channing Tatum, who plays Duke, is they just send a signal to they just sent a message saying that to get out of there to all the Cobras, because they're going to blow up the ice pack. And then he tells his team to get out of there too. And I'm like, I did not notice that. I just thought randomly they saw the thing blow up and they're like, all right, let's get out of here. I was like, I picked up on little things like that. And I'm like, oh, so this actually is more of explaining stuff, rather than in movies oh, they didn't explain this, or they didn't explain this. How did this happen? How did this? This movie kind of does set up stuff like that. He does kind of fill in stuff like that. Like Stephen Sommers, who I actually love. I love Van Helsing. I love The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. In fact, look, I bought this the other day. Rick O'Connell from The Mummy. I love The Mummy so much. From the original 1995, no, I'm sorry, it's 90, is it 96 or 97? I love that movie, and I only know what year it came out. That's sad, right? But I love The Mummy, okay? Mummy and The Mummy Returns are two of my favorite movies ever made. Now, I will say The Mummy 1's way better, but The Mummy 2 is still a fun time. It's kind of like Indiana Jones and stuff. And so, Stephen Sommers, when he made this movie, I was really, you know, I was kind of looking forward to it, but at the same time, I didn't know he made it at the time. But as looking back, I'm like, oh, he made this movie. And then there is mummy people in it from The Mummy. There's like 4 or 5 people from the Mummy movies in this movie. For instance, Brendan Fraser has a cameo as one of the Joes, and the guy who plays the Mummy is Sartan in the movie, and so is the guy who plays Heavy Duty. He's in The Mummy Returns, and the guy who plays Benny in the first Mummy movie is Dr. Mindbender, and so all these stuff is like, oh my god, this okay, he's bringing back some of the Mummy cast. That's cool, and I really like that. And also, like, there are some of the performances are really well done. Like, I will say, Dennis Quaid is really good in the movie. Ray Park does Snake Eyes, even though he doesn't say nothing. He moves around and does really well. And I will say, like, even Edward Aquifer, he does a really good job at Heavy Duty. I know I'm butchering his name. I'm sorry. But he does a really good job as Heavy Duty. And I also really love the fact that there's also, it's a really well-known cast. Like, you know, they're not well-known. They used to not be well-known, but now they are well-known. And so, you know, Marlon Wayans is really great. And there is even some backstories to where you're like, there is character depth underneath all this problems in the script and everything. There are a lot of problems. And so one of the things I really have a problem with, in a sense, is the movie is trying so hard to be like this epic superhero movie when it's not really needs to be a superhero movie. It's just, they have a plot, a really good plot underneath all this. It's just like, you know, like, there's a love story. There's even a story, like, there's a thing that I really liked in the movie when Marlon Wayans' character, Ripcord, is talking about how he wants to be a pilot. I really like that right there. And then every 5 seconds, they keep trying to make a joke about it. Every time he tries to say, yeah, I really want to be a pilot, he goes, oh, do they accept that in crayons? And I understand there's supposed to be comedy in this, but, like, dude, he's just trying, like, to give a heartfelt moment, and then you're just trying to ruin it with a joke. Like, come on, man, I want to hear, like, you know, they're really trying to tell a good story here, and every time, it feels like when they have a good idea, they just want to throw a joke in just to get rid of the idea. It's like, okay, are they really trying to make a good movie? And then all of a sudden, hey, I'll get you a trampoline if you want to fly. And I'm just like, oh my god, like, really? Come on, man. I mean, if you're 5 years old, yeah, that's going to make you laugh, but, like, I'm just in there trying to find, like, and there are moments in this movie where, like, they explain one thing where the Baroness, okay, why is she called the Baroness? Well, she's married, and I'm like, I never thought of that before. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, and stuff like that. And there are some good moments between Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow that some parts of it feel like they cut away too fast. Like, one point is like, okay, he's right here, and then it just cuts over to the next scene, and I'm just like, are they on a time limit or something? Like at the beginning of the movie, with Destro's grandfather's origins, or whatever, his ancestors' origins, and they cut that scene up. Like, there's a scene where he's just standing, he's in this jail cell, and then cuts to the next scene. I'm like, are they paying the editor by the second or something? He's like, gotta hurry up and edit this movie. Oh my god, I only got 30 minutes left. Okay, I'll just start this. Done. Where's my paycheck? You know, I mean, it seems like some parts of that, the editing, just feels like it goes too fast, you know? And, I mean, it's not always like that in the movie. There's some parts that feel like they're well paced out. And there is a cool transition shot where Marlon Wayans' character, Ripcord's in the air and Duke, and then it switches over and you go underwater with Duke. And I'm like, that's a cool transition shot. I really like that. And the movie's not badly directed or nothing. The movie has a lot of humor in the movie. I mean, some parts are really fun. Like, there was really one joke that I laughed at where he was like, this one guy, his character is like, it's like finding a needle in a coal mine. And then Marlon Wayans like, haystack. You're right, sorry. Haystack in a coal mine. Just like, that actually made me laugh. That actually did make me laugh. And there are some smart things, like when Duke grabs the case and when they're going to the headquarters, Cobra headquarters, and runs, and then Storm Shadow throws a dart at him. Not a dart, one of those samurai throwing things. He throws that at him. And then he walks over, grabs the case, and says, now what are we going to do? Run 1,000 miles. I like that scene, and then you find out Duke pushed the button. And I'm like, that's actually clever. Rather than I'm just randomly finding Cobra's headquarters. Now, I'm not saying the movie's perfect. The movie is not no means like, I prefer Retaliation over Rise of Cobra. And since Snake Eyes coming out, here's my review of Rise of Cobra, and I will say that the movie itself has a lot of issues, completely, and the CGI does not age well at all. Like, the third act of this movie is just a massive CGI fight underwater, to where I'm just like, Thank God they didn't make Aquaman in 2009, because this is what it would look like. And I'm like, oh, I was thinking about that when I was watching. I am so glad they waited to make Aquaman, because we'd be stuck with this CGI. I'm so glad. And another thing I really will say is, there are some stupid moments in this movie, like that are just like for instance, okay, the president is played by the great Jonathan Pryce. He plays the president of the United States, and he even has a better role in the sequel. But in this role, there's one scene where he's like, okay, he says a really smart line, okay, and this could be just like an editor's mistake, or it could be a scene that was supposed to be taken out, or that was replaced or re-put in or something. Could have been test audiences needed more explanation, so they just doubled their, stuff like that. But the scene was, okay, he says, the terrorists have not made any demands. And then he goes, that's because they plan, and he says, that's because they plan to use them. And then he later asks, he says, have they made any demands? Or no, he says something like along the lines where I'm just thinking, didn't you just say they're not planning on making any demands, so they intend to use them? Like, he says something to where he's contradicting the first scene, which I will say, in defense, that scene could have been like cut up and put back this way or this way. It's not necessarily his fault or the director's fault or even the script's fault. It could just be a scene that was taken out of content, put together in a different way. That could be it, because that necessarily is not always the case. And there is certain things that I want to talk about real quick. Like, for instance, there is a chase sequence, the Paris chase sequence, I thought was pretty stupid, because if you just stay back from a distance, it's really just a chase sequence of going pew, 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 pew. Like, from a distance, it just looks like they're shooting at each other. It looks like you got two cars and they're going pew, 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 pew. I'm just like laughing, going. If you take the music out and you take, like, the camera shaking up, going, it just looks like this going pew, 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 pew. I'm just like, why? Like, this is a chase sequence. But yeah, I mean, we're getting better with the action as we go on with movies. And I will say, though, like, I have a problem with one of the producers of this movie, and his name is Lorenzo de Bonaventura. I have issues with him, okay? This movie, for instance, was rushed into production. This movie was not intentionally supposed to be like, oh, this movie took 3 years to prepare. No, this movie was rushed into production because they had an August 2009 release date. And so, he even said openly in an interview, yeah, the movie was rushed into production, like when he was promoting G.I. Joe Retaliation. He said, yeah, the movie was rushed into production. Like, we were like, okay, here's the costume that Storm Shadow's going to wear. And I'm like, it's terrible, but it'll work because we're about to begin shooting. And I'm like, they could have, and that's not necessarily his fault, but, you are the producer, so it's your call to make these calls of whether you start shooting or you should wait. So it's your call. And also, I mean, I understand not always, because, the studio could say, no, we need to start shooting because we could lose the rights or anything like that, or Hasbro could change the thing and shut the film down completely. I understand that. But this dude has done some shady stuff behind the scenes before. For instance, if you ever seen the drama Batman and Robin, you'll know his name's all over it because he's the head of Warner Brothers at the time. He used to be the head of Warner Brothers. And in fact, all the problems that came out of the 90s in Warner Brothers were his problem. Because he was the person that said, we should make a toy line of every movie we do. And Joel Schumacher has even said this in previous interviews. He's like, he said, make it more toyetic or toy-tastic. And so you're just like, there's even a toy line for Wild Wild West, and that's not even a kid's movie. I don't understand why there's a toy line for that. I remember getting a Wild Wild West toy from Burger King, and I'm just like, why is there a toy line for this? Is this a kid's movie? I mean, Men in Black, I could justify that. Wild Wild West, I couldn't justify getting a toy from. But I understand. His job, like, he thought as Warner Bros., oh, we're trying to market everything to kids, so we'll just do toy lines for every movie we make. And I'm just like, that's not what you're supposed to do. And his job, he kind of did that with Batman and Robin. He kind of forced toy lines, and they were making a toy line before they were even making the movie. And so that was a lot of problems. And he did this with G.I. Joe. Like, if you notice, a lot of the designs are, oh, they're made to be toy. Like, I suspect, I don't know if this is true, in G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra, there's suits. Stephen Summers has said that was his idea, but I suspect maybe Lorenzo had something to do with that scene, because I'm like, those suits just came out of nowhere. Like, that does not just happen. I mean, I understand because it takes time to, like, think about like this idea and concept. And I know there's CGI, but still, I'm just like, I don't think that's necessarily all Steven's idea. I think that was Lorenzo, and Steven just took credit for it because he thought this was going to work, and it backfired. I mean, like, the movie itself, I mean, it is a toy commercial in a sense of, like, Batman and Robin, but there actually is more of a story there compared to Batman and Robin, but still, it's a mess nonetheless. And I will say there is a good reveal, like the Cobra Commander reveal. I will say that reveal was really good because in most movies, oh, we thought Christopher Eccleston's character, he was going to be the Cobra Commander. And so, there are, like you were thinking, for me watching the movie, I never thought, oh, hey, he's going to be the Cobra Commander. Or he is going to be the Cobra. I never thought this guy was going to be the Cobra Commander. But now I watched it, there are hints that he's not the Cobra Commander. For instance, his ancestor is, like the original Destro. And so now he becomes Destro, and I'm like, that makes sense now. And, yeah, I'm pretty sure in 2009, I didn't pick up on that, but I'm like, usually in the movie, the bad guy becomes, the main bad guy always becomes the villain of the movie. And so he actually was the secondary character. I'm like, well, that was really well done. I mean, compared to, like, Iron Man 3's, like, oh, I'm not the Mandarin thing. This one was actually more well done. Not saying it was perfect, I'm just saying it was a better reveal compared to Iron Man 3. And I will say that Christopher Eccleston and Joseph Gordon-Levitt come off as just generic evil bad guys. Like, I feel like they just said, ooh, like, he even does his eyebrows, like, detonate the ice pack. And I'm just like, he's playing this like a comic book villain. Like, he literally is generic bad guy. Like, if he had a mustache, he would twirl and go, like, he plays it exactly like that. I'm just like, why? Like, at least in the second one, he doesn't reprise his role. The guy who does play it, Luke Bracey, plays the Cobra Commander, actually does a decent job and doesn't come off like a huge comic book villain. Even though he makes one-liners in that movie, they're still, I mean, just like, why is he going up? Like, he's going for like, oh, I'm going to be the best comic book villain ever. I'm going to win Best Villain of the Year. And it's like, no, you're not. You're going to win Worst Villain of the Year. Like, this movie, I mean, itself, it's not the worst movie based on the toy line, but it's not the best either, and I will say the second one's so much better, but there are a lot of good ideas, and I'm sure Steven Sommers, he has admitted several times that he never was a fan of G.I. Joe because he thought it was just an action figure line, and then he found out about the cartoon, which I'm like, how did you not know about the cartoon? Did you just generically like, oh, there's a cartoon? Like, he just thought it was just a bunch of army men, that was it. But he openly admitted saying that, like, if you watch the Blu-ray, like I did, he said that, oh, I was not a bigger fan of G.I. Joe. I was just like, that's just a bunch of dolls. And then he's like, I started learning about the mythology of Cobra and all that. And I'm like, huh. And he passed on directing The Mummy 3 to direct this movie. And I'm just like, I don't know what was worse that year. The Mummy, which the Mummy came out in 2008. This one came out in 2009. I don't know what was worse, The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, or this movie. I would probably say this is a better movie because at least this one tries to stay somewhat accurate to what the toy line is compared to The Mummy 3, which is ruins entirely the whole saga. But I would say this movie, if you play it for kids, it's like the Tom and Jerry version of G.I. Joe. Like, kids will like it because it's a lot of special effects and all. Even though the special effects don't age well at all, there is a scene though I will say I love where they're getting ambushed by Cobra at the beginning with the missiles. I thought that scene was really well done. And he's like, and then I didn't pay attention when I first saw it, but I paid attention now. Where he said, Duke, he said, weren't we supposed to meet up with this rendezvous? And he says, because we missed that. And I'm like, oh, I never knew. Oh, they killed them. I'm like, oh. Like, stuff like that, if you pay attention to, there's hints of like, oh, this is coming up. Oh, this is coming. Oh. Like, if you pay attention to their plot at hand, it's actually a genius plot. Like, the Nano War, this is the beginning of the Nano War. And if you watch it, they're actually planning on using these missiles for, like, like, the missiles are just a distraction. And he says, oh, I plan on, being this, if you're not paying attention to the full story. He tells Channing Tatum, Christopher Eccleston's Destro tells him that. And really, that wasn't even, they weren't planning on succeeding. You find out, you're like, they weren't, this really, the plan all along was, they were just trying to distract them with the missiles so they can get the Cobra, can get the President of the United States, Zartan, inside there so that way they can have control because they're like, yes, we don't expect to win the battle. We just expect to win the war. And I'm like, that's actually clever. If they would just focus on stuff like that, this movie would be fantastic. But instead, there's so much of action and CGI and putting lips on Snake Eyes, which, why would they do that? Okay, that's like ridiculous. Putting lips on Snake Eyes, it just looks like a mannequin. I mean, ridiculous. At least in the second one, they took the lips off. And I mean, stuff like that, it kind of really irks me. Like the bad, that's really what the bad is. There's a lot of bad, but, and I'm trying to say the good stuff. When I said some of the good stuff, like, you know, that sequence and some of the ideas that are actually really good. I will say, if I had to give this a grade, I would say, originally my plan was to give it an F, because I'm like, there's no way this is good. But then that felt like an unfair assessment after rewatching it and picking up on certain things. I'm like, this is actually not an F movie. This is actually a much better movie. I would say, if I had to give it a grade, I would give it a C-, because that's how much it was really, I thought, much better than on this viewing experience than I had. But that is my review for G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra. I'm going to review G.I. Joe Retaliation next, which I love, so expect a positive review on that one. Or though, who knows, I could watch it and not like it and say, oh, well, this is actually, Rise of Cobra was better. I don't know how, but you know. But thank you all so much for watching. I promise I'm going to have a review for Snake Eyes soon. I know it's come out and I've heard negative things about it, but I've also heard a few positive things, so I'm going to just reserve my own opinion, and I'm going to go see it for myself. Probably Sunday I'll see it, so probably Monday morning you'll have that review. But you'll have a review for tomorrow for Retaliation, because I'm going to watch that tonight. Thank you all so much for watching. If you can, just give this video a thumbs up, you know. Help the YouTube algorithm, and fall down the rabbit hole for more. Thank you all so much for watching.